A woman applied for a tutoring job and put in everything real, right? She put in her real name, her real age, her real qualifications, all of that, and the job was immediately declined. Not in a week, not in a few days, just immediately declined. So she went ahead and tried something. The next day, she went ahead and resubmitted the application. Everything exactly the same, other than her age was significantly lower. That's not a rumor. That is a complaint in the US under the Equal Opportunity Act that was filed against a company called iTutorGroup, which said that the company had specifically programmed its application process to deny all women above the age of 55 and all men above the age of 65. More than 200 people were part of this lawsuit, and the company decided to settle it for 360 something thousand dollars and then denied all allegations. Now, here's what everyone says when you can't really get a job, right? Fix your resume, network more. Maybe you're the problem. Tailor your cover letter a bit more. Be more confident. Get another certification. I want to show you the thing that nobody's really saying out loud. You're not failing an interview, you're barely even getting one, and the reason is not because you suck, it's because the machine was built specifically to go ahead and not even give you an option. We treat unemployment like a personal failing, but you cannot discipline or fix or upgrade your way out of a system that is specifically tailored to reject you before you even get to do anything. This is the application machine, and let's take it apart one symptom at a time. Symptom one, the fake door. Some of the jobs that you're applying for are not actually even real jobs. They're called ghost jobs. They're postings that are live, openly accepting applications, and attached to no actual intentions to hire anyone, so that these companies can show that they are actively hiring and get some sort of tax benefits off of that. And I want to be very honest about the numbers here because this is where people kind of get sloppy. It depends entirely on who's actually counting. Greenhouse, one of the most big like hiring platforms, along with like a tracking for other employees to be able to report how you're actually liking your company and stuff like that. They estimate that around 20% of the jobs are ghost jobs. Federal job opening data put the share of postings that never result in a hire a little bit higher in some sectors, around half in education and health, and just under half in tech. So, somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 3. I'm not going to give you a fake precise number because the fake precise number is how you get clipped and dismissed. But sit with even the low end of that of 1 in 5. If you sent out 100 applications last month, roughly 20 of them went into a room where nobody was even going to see them. You didn't get ignored, you literally had no one in the room to ignore you. In surveys of HR professionals, and these are self reported surveys, so hold them a little bit more loosely, the most common reason given is pipeline building. Keep a stack of pre screened humans warm in case a real job does show up later. You're not an application, you're just in inventory. Right? The second reason is the one that should make you angry. A large share of employers said that they post roles to give the impression that the company is growing. That's it. The job isn't for you. The job is more like a press release, right? Like it's so that there are investors and their competitors can look at this and say, oh my God, they're still staffing, they're growing, and think that they're expanding. Some of them said the quiet part kind of out loud that a wall of open roles makes current employees feel replaceable. Work harder, look how many people want your seat. Here's what makes this one different from every other machine I've covered. There's no villain to the name. There is no guy, there is no camera, there is no recruiter with a number to hit and a career page that looks better full than empty, right? Nobody decided to waste a year of your life with applications. It just happens to be free for them and expensive for you, right? That's what the system is. Symptom two, the filter with no appeal. Right now, there's a lawsuit in California, Mobley versus Workday. Workday is a software an enormously large number of employees use to take an application. The lawsuit alleges that its application screening tool disadvantages anyone over the age of 40. I need to be careful here, so listen to the shape of this. Nothing has been proven. Workday denies the allegations. There is no trial date currently. What has happened is this. In February of this year, a federal judge allowed it to proceed as a collective action, meaning anyone in the United States who has applied to a job through Workday since September of 2020 and was 40 or older when they did can join this case. Think about what that sentence means as a piece of infrastructure. The court didn't decide anyone was harmed, it decided that the question was worth asking at a scale, a question about potentially hundreds of millions of applications routed through one vendor scoring. That's the part that has nothing to do with this verdict, right? One piece of software now sits between a huge share of the working population and almost every large employer that will ever be getting applications from you. Whether or not it's biased, that's a choke point, right? And nobody has yet vetoed it. But when a human rejects you, a human did it, right? When this rejects you, the rejection has no author. There is nobody to appeal to because nobody chose you. Just a machine decided that you weren't good enough. Here's the thing that people get wrong about algorithmic discrimination. They kind of picture an engineer who's racist going ahead and typing these things to make sure that people get discriminated against. Not exactly the case, right? Reuters reported back in 2018 that Amazon built an internal resume screening tool and scrapped it because it taught itself to downgrade resumes that contained the word women's, as in women's chess club, women's college, etc. Nobody told it to do that. They fed it a decade of the company's own hiring policies and decisions and asked it to find the pattern. It found the pattern. The pattern was the problem. The machine wasn't broken, it was working perfectly on a history of human discrimination. And that's the whole danger, right? The systems don't need prejudice, right? They need a proxy. Your postcode, the length of the gap in your CV, which university that you went to, which words you happen to use. Then that correlation gets applied to 100,000 people at once, at machine speeds, with a clean interface and no explanation. Bias used to be one bad manager ruining things for people in his building. Now it's a vendor license running everywhere at the same time. We didn't remove human prejudice, we just gave it a much bigger employment database. Symptom 3, the interview with nobody in it. You get the invitation, you put on the shirt, you sit down, and it's camera and prompt, and no human is ever going to watch it. In a survey Greenhouse published this year, about 63% of US job seekers said they'd already been interviewed by an AI, but nothing happened after that, right? And this number is significantly up in the last 6 months. Nearly 40% said that they had walked out of a hiring process because of it, and around 70% said that the employer never clearly told them that an AI would be involved. You've been in a room with something judging you, and it didn't even introduce itself. And what is it measuring exactly? Here's the detail I genuinely cannot get out of my head. HireVue is one of the biggest video interviewing company. They used to do facial analysis on the candidates. They stopped in 2021 after a privacy group filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, and the company's own stated reason for dropping it was that the facial data contributed about 1/4% to predicting job performance. 1/4%. Read that as for years, people's faces were being scored to decide their rent and their food by a signal that the vendor itself later described as almost worthless. You weren't bad at the interview, you were the training data. Your face was just a little bit too ugly for them to hire you, or maybe just a little bit too black. Take that into account. And here's how you know this isn't me being dramatic. Illinois, Maryland, and New York City all passed laws that require employers to tell you when AI is being used to evaluate you. California and Colorado are phasing in their own versions later this year. Sit with that. We need legislation to force companies to admit that they are judging you with a thing that isn't even a person. This is not a law you passed because everyone was being upfront. You passed that law because by default silence was the choice, and that silence was working. And it took a legislature to go ahead and interrupt it. And notice what those laws mostly do. They require disclosure. They tell you that the machine is there. Almost none of them give you a way to argue with it or say no. So the state of the art in work protection in 2026 is you now have the right to be told by name exactly what you can't appeal and will discriminate against you for. That's not a scandal. Nobody's shouting anything about it. It's just the floor, and the floor is that fucking low. Symptom 4, and this is the one I want you to remember because it's how I know somebody's making money off of your fear. You've heard this, 75% of resumes are rejected by the machine before a human ever sees them. It's everywhere. It's on every career page, in every LinkedIn carousel, in every Beat the Bots thread that at every single one of them, right? People have traced it. It comes from a sales pitch by a resume optimization company called PrepTel around 2012. PrepTel was out of business by the following year. No methodology was ever published, and the number drifts. You'll see 70, 75, 85%, which is the tell, right? A real statistic has one value with one method. This one has three values, no methods. Meanwhile, recruiters who actually work with these systems will tell you the overwhelming majority of applications do get looked at by a human, that the software is mostly like a filing cabinet with a search box. So ask the question I always ask. Who benefits from you believing it? The resume writing services, the keyword stuffing tools, the ATS optimized template, $49.99, right? The LinkedIn guy with the carousel title, the ATS is hiding your resume. Here's my system to fix this. An entire industry that sells you the cure for a disease that it has described with no real evidence. Same funnel I showed you with the hustle gurus, right? make you feel doomed, and charge you for hope. And this one is a little bit cleverer because the panic is doing real damage. People are rewriting their whole personality into keywords for a robot that a human was going to read anyway. Some of the machine is real, and some of it is fear for somebody to rent and make money off of you. Anyways. Symptom 5, the arms race. Because we all figured out the game, and the game got worse. If a machine is reading your application, the obvious move is to have a machine write it. So people did. Auto apply bots, set your preferences, go to sleep, wake up to 300 submissions, AI written cover letters, tuned per postings in seconds, right? Applications on LinkedIn have jumped enormously, reported up around 45% year on year. And there are moments where more than 10,000 applications are submitted every single minute. And the machine that the company installed to handle volume, it's now drowning in the volume that exists because of the fact that it exists. Then look who got handed the microphone. A 21-year-old named Roy Lee got suspended from Columbia over a tool he built to cheat technical job interviews, an overlay that feeds you the answers and by design doesn't show up on the screen when you share it, right? He didn't hide from that, he leaned in, rebranded and marketed it with a tagline, cheat on everything. He raised $5.3 million dollars and then $15 million more from Anderson Horowitz. He has since admitted publicly that a revenue figure he had been claiming wasn't even true. His words were that it was the only blatantly dishonest thing he had ever said publicly online. And I don't think he's a disease, I think he's the clearest read on the machine anyone has given us. He looked at hiring, concluded that the whole thing was already fake, built the logical product, got rewarded for it enormously, and then immediately by people whose job it is to spot where the value is. Delete his company tomorrow and there's another one by Friday. This slot will never go empty. The slot is called Hope that people beat a process that never ever stopped being about them. Two sets of robots lying to each other and exactly one person in the transaction is losing sleep. You. Now let me be fair because if I'm not, everything else I've said is worthless, right? The recruiters are not having a great time either. 300 plus applications on a single posting, most of them submitted within minutes, a big chunk of them machine written by people who never even read the role. No human being can read that pile, not one, right? So when they reach for automation, that isn't really villainy, it is just triage, right? I should tell you, when the evidence is contested, there's a strong story going around that AI ate most of the entry level jobs. But a study out of London School of Economics this year argued that remote work is actually a better predictor of the collapse in entry level hiring than AI is, because remote work makes supervising and teaching a beginner expensive. That might be the bigger factor. We don't know yet, I'm not going to pretend that we do. But here's what I'd say back. The volume isn't whether somebody designed one-click apply, somebody decided that a job posting should be free to publish and free to leave up forever, somebody chose to make applying frictionless and getting an answer optional. The flood was a product design, right? And when it flooded, the entire cost of it got pushed onto the one person with the least power in the entire transaction. You. You do the work of applying, you wait, you get silence. The machine didn't fail, it just doesn't count your time as a cost to worry about. So who pays? Mostly the people at the very beginning. Look at where the main pain actually is concentrated, right? Job postings for junior roles have been falling while senior postings hold up or rise. New York Fed data has recent graduate underemployment that's working a job that never required a degree at the highest level on record, over 40%. A Stanford working paper, not yet peer reviewed, so, hold it as a signal and not really a verdict, found that 22 to 25-year-olds in the most AI exposed occupations saw a 16% drop in employment. The first rung of the ladder is being quietly sawn off, and people that are standing under are being told individually, one at a time, that the story is about their attitude. Here's the idea I need you to leave and keep with you for the rest of this video, right? This machine has no villains, it just has requisitions. Nobody in it woke up wanting to grind you down. The recruiter is hitting a metric. The vendor is selling efficiency. The founder is optimizing a funnel. The hiring manager genuinely does want to fill the role. And out the other end comes a system that treats a human being's month of effort as an unpriced input. You can't exactly cancel your way out of this one. There is no face to be mad at, right? Which is exactly why it has lasted. The things that damage the most people are almost never the thing that has an actual face on them. The face constantly changes, but the requisition never actually moves. People hurt are never the ones that are actually noticed. So what actually protects you? Not just be positive, not another template. First, stop reading the output as a verdict, right? This is kind of the big one. When 400 applications produce silence, your brain does something every human being really does and does it very wrong, right? It reads that as data about your worth. It isn't, it's data about a funnel. A machine that cannot see you cannot really evaluate you, and it definitely cannot sentence you. Second, aim at humans. Fewer applications aimed at actual people beats volume aimed at a portal. Not because of some hack, but because the portal was never the door, right? One real conversation routes around the entire machine. Third, name the mechanism out loud while it is happening. That's a ghost posting, that's a filter with no author, that's someone selling me panic, right? The moment you can name it, it stops being about the story about you and it starts being exactly what it is, which is a system that is failing and is doing some damage, right? And fourth, the one I actually care about, do not let a machine that can't see you decide who you are. Whatever you were before you started applying, you're still exactly the same person. The skill didn't leave your hands. You are still more than relevant. It's just that this system is kind of weird, right? You were handed a rigged game. Nobody asked you if you wanted to play in it. Nobody told you that the rules had changed. And a lot of people made money off you thinking that the losing was your fault. It's not your fault that you started to believe you were worth nothing, but it is your responsibility to become someone you can live with, right? Someone who keeps showing up, keeps building the thing that stops handing a stranger's software the authority to tell them that they're not worth anything. The machine doesn't know your name, don't let it name you.